Hey everybody, it's Carissa. This is Bad at Keeping Secrets. Today I have Timothy Goodman. He's an artist, he's an author, he's a professor, he's an activist. What else would you say? You're a social experimenter.
A
You're
social experimenter. I'm a muralist.
yeah.
I'm a
Uh
creative person, you know?
yeah. Oh wait, what would you do? What is a creative person for you right now?
Um, anybody's trying to express themselves and get things inside out,
Yeah, which I would
which could also come out in all kinds of forms. I think there's a difference between being creative and being like an artist. I think everybody's creative, it could be just cooking or growing a garden or painting or, it could be a lot of things. It could be just how you write a note to a friend. Um, you know, uh, that makes, but then, obviously being an artist, I think everybody's probably an artist too, but it comes out that it's a little bit more packaged in some way, or it takes form in a different way. But
I feel
anyways,
like,
I'm going on.
oh no, I really try to push back on, I think instinctively I like push back on that delineation between artist and creative. It's very like
Mm,
muddy for me. But I do think it's
for
important
sure.
to have like descriptive terms that people can transfer meaning from person to person. And so I understand that like
Mm,
terms need a certain amount of boundary to make sense for people. But you're also a public speaker too, right?
mm.
You give
Yeah,
you give
I
lectures.
speak. I
Did
speak
I
at
miss
creative conferences. I love.
did I miss any of the things that you're
We
working
can
on right
be.
now?
No, I'm a it's funny, this painter from, you know who Ben Shahn is? The painter from like the
Yeah.
40s and 50s. Yeah, he wrote this book called The Shape of Content that I love, that I read a lot when I was in graphic design school at SVA. And I've been thinking about it again because he talks about how everything, like every brush stroke he makes, encapsulates everything we've ever been as humans. So he talks about like every stroke you make is like it's every version of yourself you've ever been: a brother, a sister, a daughter, and a lover, an ex, sweetie pie, an asshole, like anything you've ever, and it's like the person for me is like who painted homes in my late teens and early 20s and hung wallpaper, and the person who, likes basketball but also likes sappy movies, and everything that I make, all of this comes out, every version of the hundreds and thousands of versions of myself. It all has to kind of come out in everything every kind of like stroke I put on a canvas or on a wall or in a book, or
So I'm going
yeah.
to say one antidote, and then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to that. One is that my high school boyfriend gave me that book. I
Mm.
remember this. And two, I think it's fitting because we're going to talk about love and your book. And but I also wanted to say, whenever I don't know if you struggle with this as a person who makes things, but wanting to be original and creative, I go back to that. And
Mm.
I think that I wanted to ask you maybe if you felt like you had what's your relationship to wanting to be unique and an individual
Mm.
or make something new? Is that a concern of yours or?
No, I don't struggle with that so much. I think everything that we do follows suit on some tradition or form that has already existed, of course, like, so I think it's just like, how are you? Yes, you have to take ownership over what you do, but I don't think there's anything new under the sun, in the sense of like, you're not it's really impossible. I mean, it's just like to recreate the wheel, at this point, I think, and I don't know, maybe there's, I think it's in the single digits of like creators at this point who are probably doing that.
Mm.
Um, I don't know what that looks like, nor do I like struggle with that. I'm not really interested in. I'm interested in trying to just listen, like, it's not how pretty the voice is, it's about whether that voice is telling the truth. And that's all that matters. Who are you? What do you have to say? How are you trying to make it as impactful and sincere as possible? And so that's what I'm interested in, and for me that comes out in different forms and different modes of expression. And I just hope that, it's just a privilege to be able to connect to people that way. That's what I want to do as an artist and as a human. I want to see and be seen.
Hey, me too. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people probably can really relate to that. I think I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to ask you really briefly before I ask you about your sort of social experiments that take a visual format. I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you got into this, because I think you kind of alluded to it when you were talking about the shape of content. And you started out as a painter, were you a house painter, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I was a house painter. I was a really horrible high school student. I barely graduated. I was just all about getting into trouble. And I was not kind of serious about anything. So I couldn't go to school, nor did I want to go to any college. And all my friends went away, and I started painting homes. I worked for this guy for several years, Dave, who had this incredible high-end home improvement company that we worked in these really expensive homes in Cleveland, where I'm from. And yeah, I learned this trade. I learned how to paint homes and hang wallpaper and lay tile. And that's what I did for several years. But during the course of that, I started taking community college classes. And I thought maybe I wanted to get into like interior design because we worked in all these beautiful homes. And then when I was taking these kind of prereq classes, these life drawing classes, sculpture, I got really into it. And I had, shout out to teachers, man. These teachers told me like, what, are you sure you want to get into interior design? Like you seem really passionate about this. You seem really expressive. Like you should keep pursuing this. And I thought, okay, yeah, I don't want to get into interior design. Like that sounds not fun for me at that point. I was just like, I don't want to take like CAD drawing classes. And like, yeah, that just wasn't. So I was like, yeah, there's something else for me. So I thought maybe graphic design would make sense. And yeah, so I kind of worked over the course of 3 years in community college. Shout out Tri-C, Cuyahoga Community College in Cleveland, Ohio, changed my life. And I eventually transferred to SVA in New York City to go to graphic design school. And I read this whole book. Maybe we talked about this last time. I read this whole book called How to Go to College for Almost Free. So I didn't come from money, and I was going to have to pay for this insane, private art school education. And I needed to figure it out. And I read this whole book, and I applied to over 100 scholarships over the course of a year. I won 10 of them. There's scholarships for everything in different communities, and there's like local banks have scholarships. There was like a tall person scholarship that I won. I'm 6'3". I'm not even that tall. I'm like probably like a little, but there's so many, and it taught me several things, like how to write about myself, how to differentiate myself to the next person in order to vow to be worthy of this money. And it taught me how to just write about myself and my story and tell my story in poignant ways. So, it was great.
I think it's interesting, because I think in graduate school, I went to graduate school for art, and there was always this sort of ooh, only like 1 or 2 of you are going to, be able to do this.
I had a teacher who used to say stuff like that.
And you have to really want it. And I think it's interesting. Both of us have, I don't think I would have, if you talk to my high school professors or even my undergraduate, would they think,
yeah.
I had someone tell me that I wasn't smart enough to be an art history major, and I wasn't talented enough to be an art major. So I had to find a different major. And I think it's interesting, what do you think is sort of what's your story? What is in your story that you feel like you've been, because let's admit it, you've had, you're doing it.
So what? So what is your question?
What do you think what is it about your practice or about you that you think
practice
really
is a good word too?
That kind of you felt like you're able to do that? Because I feel like a lot of people dream of working for themselves, being able to express themselves in their style, and having told that only a special few people, and it's true. I graduated with, I think the most famous person, Jenny Odell, graduated with me. Do you know
Oh,
who
wow.
he is?
Yeah.
And like you just never know who's gonna like
Yeah. You never
go
know.
on to continue making or to keep up with their practice. And I was just curious what the story was that you're telling yourself at this moment is
I
about.
appreciate you saying practice though too, because that's something I always talk about. I always say to, specifically for like designers, like graphic designers. I think we need to like reframe the way we talk about our profession. I prefer to always say to think about this as a practice, not as a profession.
Why is that?
Because like I think it limits you to think of it as a profession. And I think that when as a practice, it's boundless when you think of it that way, and like why should doctors and lawyers and therapists be practicing, but like aren't we out here just kind of, there's no rhyme or reason to this stuff. Profession kind of like, I feel, forces
Something
this
static.
language. Yeah. And it forces some language around like the idea that like things have to fit into this box in order to be professional, quote unquote. And this is what makes you professional. And this is what doesn't make you professional. And I think that's just bullshit. Like we're artists, like you would never say that to like, I don't know, like about a filmmaker or a writer or a fine artist or something, and I don't think we should talk about that in commercial art either, or so, yeah.
It really reminds me of growth, like wanting to be in a growth mindset. I mean, did you read that Carol Dweck book? I think.
No, I don't know.
She's the one I think who coined the term growth mindset of wanting to.
Mm.
I think I feel a little bit conflicted about it now, but it feels resonant with using the term or making the choice to use the term practice instead of
Yeah.
profession. But okay, going back to, I want to talk about how I know of you through 40 days of dating.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you, for the people who aren't familiar with this project, I was wondering if maybe you could give us a little summary and then also talk about, I think for me, I'm fascinated with social experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially ones involving love.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people are too. I feel like that explains why The Bachelor is so popular.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But this is different. Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah, I mean, so at this point, wow, it's been almost
Sorry.
10 years since we did that project. It's like many lifetimes ago. But me and my good friend and fellow colleague, Jessica Walsh, we created this project called 40 Days of Dating, where she and I were both single at the same time and really good friends, and decided that we would, quote unquote, date each other for 40 days in order to learn more about our relationship woes at the time. At the time, it's wild. I was kind of a commitment phobe. We were very stereotypical in the sense of like I was just like this man, stereotypically like not committing and like kind of dating around and trying to figure out what I wanted, and just like kind of married to my work and early in my career in New York. And she was the exact opposite in a lot of ways. She was like looking for the one, and she was, really wanting something meaningful. I was a little bit of a jerk in some ways. I was young and just trying to figure it all out. And so, but I wanted more. I knew that like this wasn't what I wanted to do ultimately. And I wanted to, I realize now through many, many years of therapy, connecting the dots and like why I had this certain kind of armor up. And it all had to do so much with, as everything does, with my childhood, with traumas about my family and seeing my stepfather or my mother not in a loving relationship growing up, and not not showing love or affection or real communication, and a lot of just a lot of bad things that I saw as a kid. And ultimately I would equate love or a relationship as a shortcoming as a young man.
Were you
And that's something
avoidant?
that,
Was your
what's
attachment
that?
style avoidant?
No, I'm a secure. Well, at this point, I'm a secure attachment.
Oh,
I
not
just get
now,
worried
but
that,
when
yeah,
in the past were
I
you
think
avoidant?
so. Yeah, I think so.
Sorry to interrupt.
For
Go on.
sure. No, no, of course, but it still plays out, of course. Now that I'm like checked in for love, like sign me up, I'm ready. vulnerable, like, and I have been for many years, and like, but I'm still like, I'm a secure attachment. Like I feel like at any little thing goes wrong and I'm like, oh man, they're gonna leave me. Like I'm not worthy of this. I have to constantly be reminded by my therapist that I'm like worthy of love, that I'm lovable, that I'm deserving of this stuff, you know, and like and very much why I'm like, you know, I need to communicate. My therapist says I'm a relational processor. So I
Ooh.
need to like, yeah, like I need to like talk it out. I need words of affirmation and, you know, all these kind of things. But anyways, back to 40 days a day. Yeah. So we decided we would kind of quote unquote date each other as a way to learn more about each other. And we said, in order to make this a real experiment, we felt we had to come up with this list of rules, 6 rules that we would obey in the course of 40 days. Like we would, you know, see each other every day. We would go on a weekend trip together. We would see
This
a
is
couple.
so dangerous. You're
I
like playing
know.
with fire.
We
Sorry, that's
agreed
so
that we would see a couples therapist together once a week.
wow.
And we agreed that we would fill out this form every day that we created these like 8 questions that would ask every day, like, did you see Jessica? How do you feel about things? What do you want to do differently? Like, it was really like, you know, it was really like an experiment in that sense. And the way we created it is that once we were finished with the project, we made this website where you visit every day. But what it made it unique is you could see Jessica on the left and me on the right, the same 8 questions every day. So you see how she interprets the day or the date and how I do, and all the internal dialogues that's happening that we're not talking to each other about or something. And, you know, and I think that, and the way we did it, this is also 2013, which is about 50 lifetimes ago on the internet. You know, like it was a blog. People, you know, we released it daily. It was like a reality kind of blog situation, reality like blog, like so it was people at first, like I thought no one would care, like, you know, my mom, a couple exes or something. But by like day 10, day 11 that we were releasing this daily in the summer of 2013, started really catching fire. And like suddenly, like we got on like the New York Daily News, and then suddenly it was CNN, and then suddenly it was like the NBC Today Show. It was wild. And people, like hundreds of thousands of people were reading this a day. It was pretty, like I think the last day, day 40, there were like 500,000 people read that post. It was a wild time. So yeah, you know, and that project opened up a lot for me. You know, I really it broke down a lot of barriers about what I felt like I would want to do as a creative person, and just who I am as a man and as a human, you know. And like it forced me to look at some of my shortcomings in the mirror, some of my misogyny. I still call myself a recovering misogynist in a lot of ways. I think most straight men are, and need to kind of like think about that deeply, about how we you know, just process the world that was made for us and what we're doing with our privilege. And you know, it forced me to confront a lot of things that I'm very thankful for. And I've continued to kind of like, you know, Jessica and I have done social experiments afterwards. We did something called 12 Kinds of Kindness, which was a big social experiment about our own apathy as humans. And then I've done other sort of things with friends where we did this this website in 2018 or 19, where me and my friends documented our text therapy sessions. You know, text therapy, online therapy. We saw a therapist for 4 or 5 months, and we kind of documented the text therapy sessions, and we made a website about what we were going through. So I've always been really, what's that?
What's that website? I didn't read about that.
I think it might be down at this point. It's called Friends Read. Now I can't even remember the damn project. But I'm confusing it with something else that I created. It's Friends. Is it not Friends Read Feelings? I think it's Friends Read Feelings, or I don't know, something like that. Why am I forgetting? But yeah, the website I think is down, unfortunately.
So something I was curious about maybe this is obvious, but how did your feelings change for Jessica over those 40 days? And how did hers change for you in the documentation?
Well, there's a little bit of Sorry, I'm in New York City. um, yeah, I mean, listen, at the time I was really shut off from relationships. So that time I was able to, I had let a woman in closer than I had in many years. Um, Ultimately we just became, the relationship didn't work, but we became so much more closer. Obviously, when you go through that with someone, it's like, and then all that kind of aftermath of like all the publicity and all this stuff, we grew extremely close as friends. Like we're always kind of linked, no matter what, like she's one of my best friends, and there's just like a trust that comes along with our relationship now. It's a very brother sister, even if we don't talk all the time anymore or whatever, maybe we don't see each other as much, like once we link, once we connect, it's just like, right, it's just like a love, because of our experiences and the art we've made together.
How do you
um
feel? How do you feel about what distinguishes, and maybe this is something you haven't thought about, or maybe you thought about it and you don't have an answer. That's okay too. What connects you in a romantic way to certain people, and
mm,
a friendship way in other people? Because I think for me, when I'm close, it's difficult for me to figure out what way when I'm really excited about someone or a new person, it's difficult for me to
yeah.
figure out what sort of delineation the relationship or how it will take form. And this experiment reminds me of this other experiment I remember reading about, where two people had just gotten married and decided, they did brain scans on their wedding day, and then for their honeymoon they drove from like Alaska to Argentina
uh
in a motorcycle, or like
what?
together. And then
Yeah.
they scanned their brains when they arrived. And one of the couple, I think stereotypically, I think it was the woman who is still very like, all of the attachments that are just sort of lit up in her brain. But the man's brain, and again, I know this was a while ago, so sorry I'm using
Yeah.
binaries, um, no longer felt that way
Mm.
for her. And I think like,
Did they break up?
I don't know. I think they stayed together, but it was very clear that their feelings for each other had changed on like a chemical level. Or
Mm.
hers had stayed the same, but his had changed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I was curious, again, going back to my question for you, how do you know it's love in a romantic way, and love in a sort of friendship, companion, brother, or sister way?
Mm. Well, I mean, I think in she and I were always friends, so I don't know. I mean, any given person, relationship, whatever, like I think, like there's just something about uh multiple things kind of like peaking for you emotionally, physically, intellectually, that happen, um where you feel extremely stimulated in all those areas, and so that way it kind of tells you. And also like a pheromones thing, that's for every, all kinds of people, that just kind of, I don't know, it's almost like doing a disservice to try to explain it. Like, I don't know, uh it's
Uh,
just
it reminds,
happens, you got to trust that.
reminds me of this Helen Fisher quote about how you shouldn't, like when you take a bite of chocolate cake, does it ruin it to know how it was made and what went into it?
Yeah.
And she argues that no, it doesn't. And I think I'm more in that camp of like, um, and I see you in the camp of like, oh, it's just magic. It's like not the word magic, but
Yeah, I kind of like the magic idea. I like to just kind of, I mean, listen, chocolate cake, I want to know what's in it, because
are you
it could be really,
gluten free?
it could be really bad for me. I don't know. It could be just way too much sugar.
Oh,
But that's interesting too. I think you have to trust, I think that's where I think it's really important to consider, for all of us to always consider therapy, especially I think men more and more, because we have to be able to like dig deep into, now therapy is a privilege, and there's all kinds of cost effective ways to consider therapy, whether it's text therapy now, that's much cheaper, online therapy, so on and so forth, community centers that do, mental health services and stuff. But listen, if you can go to therapy, if you can afford it, if you can make time for it, I think it's very important, because you have to dig deep into like what makes you tick, and like why maybe why you follow certain patterns that aren't healthy. And it's extremely difficult to break those patterns. But in time, learning about who you are, what's happened to you, and a will to be proactive about things. I think in time, there a lot of good can come from that. And so you have to know what's in that and then you kind of intuitively know what's in that chocolate cake, or whether you should eat it or not, or whether you should walk away. Yeah.
Totally. I wanted to say, so I think it's on, I can't remember where I saw this, but I feel like Lena Dunham said either a chronic oversharer, or what do you remember? Or a wild oversharer.
Oh yeah, she incredibly blessed me with a blurb for my new book. She said, yeah, if you're an oversharer, or just anyone who's looking to be more proactive about who you are as a human or something, this book's for you. I don't know, something along those lines.
Okay, so my question is, where is your boundary on oversharing? Because I think we'll move into the book. I always think it's forever. But I think I'm curious how you decide what to share with people. Because I do think a lot of the things that you share throughout your body of work are very push up against these boundaries of I think it's pretty amazing that you feel comfortable letting things out there and sort of working through. I think you talk about your, I guess, resistance, or you're working on dealing with issues of masculinity and how kind of held you back in a lot of ways. But I guess going back to my question about boundaries, and sharing and being a wild oversharer, do you consider yourself a wild oversharer?
I perhaps maybe people would say that. I mean, yeah, I did just create a graphic memoir that chronicles, a year of my life with all sorts of, I've kind of really unleashed, talking about everything from childhood abuse to, to what I was eating in Paris, to, heartbreak and my attachment styles and my attachment disorder, and taking antidepressants for the first time. And, but that's what a memoir is. This is a graphic memoir. I'm an artist, but that's what it's about. If I think that's what you do, I think, it's like we create stories about, if you're telling a story about your life, you have to share, you have to talk about it all. I think, that's just how I do it. But
what's the sort of value in, as the reader, coming to it? Because I think about this a lot, and I think you think about it too, in oversharing or trying to I also think about you as a radically honest in a lot of ways. I mean, maybe not in some ways, but how do you feel about that term?
Wait, what is the term?
Radical honesty.
Oh, radical honesty.
We could say radical transparency also could be applicable in terms of the book.
That's fine. I don't get too caught up in titles and terms and stuff. I'm cool with it. I can be, maybe I'm a radical honest person. I just kind of listen, I just want to, for me, there's just no other way. I just feel what is the legacy we're all leaving down and handing down, and in a way, there's just something beautiful to me to tell my story as I see it, and my point of view about the world and the way I experience it, and hopefully connect to other people who experience these things too. And I want to just, like I said, I'm an expressionist, it just feels important to me. It brings me a lot of meaning. I think so much of this stuff is selfish at first, you have to act in a selfish way at first about what you're creating. And then eventually find the thing that connects to other people, because your story is everyone else's. But if you're not starting with who you are and what you need to do first, then I don't know. That's just not the way I do it. I've been thinking about this Toni Morrison quote, if you want to fly, you got to give up all the shit that weighs you down. And, you know, obviously that goes for so many things. But for me, so much of the flying is just like talking about these things and letting the power, you know, die essentially. And yeah, that's what I'm in it for. I don't know.
I think something really endearing about the book is the sort of caveats that you throw in. For example, in the title, a love story set in Paris as told by an unreliable but earnest narrator. When you're writing about your life and how it intersects with other people, do you ever worry about what Amy thought or what other people kind of how they bring, obviously the 40 days of dating, you got to see both sort of simultaneous perspectives commingle.
Yeah, sure. Well, the thing about this book is that it's really about me, you know, like this relationship is a catalyst, but I don't give up details about who she is or anything like that. It's really about how I'm experiencing this trip to Paris, how I'm dealing with like, you know, what it meant to kind of like leave my life and show up for myself in a big way, since this book is really off the heels of like going through tons of depression in 2018 and kind of coming out of that and vowing to do all these things I've never done before, like go to Paris and learn French and grow my hair and have a birthday party and all these kind of things and just show up for myself as a human. And so I was kind of, you know, they say ripe fruit falls quickly. And, you know, I was open to whatever came my way. And I happened to meet her and have this love affair that was incredible and poetic, and it was in Paris, and the heartbreak was excruciating, and I had to learn a lot about myself, but ultimately it's all about my journey through this all, you know. And I made sure to not have anything that would be about like, you know, that would kind of like give you an idea of like, there was no character assassination. There was no real like details about her. It was just, and like all memoirs, there are other people involved in this, and but it's your story to tell, you know, because you experienced it. The same thing about talking about certain things in this book about my family, you know, those things are different because I have to talk to my mom about that stuff. And she's not particularly happy about me, you know, discussing certain things, but I feel like it's my duty to go there, you know. And yeah.
I also written,
and there's a cost for that, of course, you know, and I think there's a cost for that with all everyone who's listening as a creative person. Like there's a risk involved if you want to go somewhere, you know, and there's a cost for that. And that is up for each person to kind of like decide what makes the most sense for them. But you know, these things, you know, these people in our lives, they have direct access to like our wounds and our triggers, you know, and and I think the same thing happens as an artist, you know. And like I've been thinking a lot about like art, like so many highly creative people like deal with mental health issues, and I just think you can't tell me that doesn't have something to do with the fact that we are putting ourselves out there open for criticism for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you know, and that's not playing into our psyche. I think it's just remiss to not to bring that up, you know. I don't know, I'm kind of going on a
oh
tangent.
no, I love it. I think about this when I took the Enneagram for the first time and found out I was a number 4. Have you taken that?
I did a long time ago, but I don't remember. I need to do it.
Well, it's basically like the tortured artist archetype is, and I had been pushing against that being at the core of me for a very long time. But I think that it's interesting that you've been thinking about why so many artists and mental health issues kind of go hand in hand or are enmeshed with one another. And I don't have a good theory on why that might be, because I don't think you have to be, I don't know, a certain way to express yourself or be creative.
No, of course.
I do think it, like, this leads me back to a question about the book. there's a gentle way you sort of almost monumentalize the sort of losing the love. So like finding the love is really, really beautifully, it's sort of articulated, and I always think it's forever. And then the loss of love also has value in it. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit about the choice to kind of sit with the loss in the context of the I always think it's forever? I also am like seriously drawn to heartbreak and sadness as a person.
Me too.
It's like a really lovely balance between the two.
Yeah, it was important for me to capture that because it really goes to like the process of what it means to fall in love and then the grieving process afterwards of a heartbreak, and how for so many of us who have, attachment disorders and stuff, like it really cuts deeper in a way. And I wanted to, I was capturing all that while it was happening, not knowing I would ever write a book. So, because that's just what I do. I'm always kind of writing about wherever I'm at. It's easier to go there when you're feeling raw though, which is always wild. It's just there's something about it that it's just, we always love a breakup song over a love song, I think. But
not everyone.
Not everyone, maybe. No, of course.
But me.
But yeah, me too.
Sure.
I mean, I'm a Cancer sun, Scorpio moon. Like I'm listening to, I can be in the greatest mood and like listening to the heartbreak songs. So yeah.
No, I talked to Susan Cain about Bittersweet. Have you read that?
No, I haven't, but I know about it.
And like the thesis of the book was why do people like sad songs? And then I talked to my sister-in-law about it, and she was like, I never listen to sad music. Why would I want to be sad?
Yeah.
So much sadness in the world already. Why would I like that? I'm like, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
quenches some deep thirst for.
But I talk about my book like it's a privilege to be heartbroken, like to have the capacity to feel so deeply for something or someone. I think is incredible, like what a testament to your heart, I think it's only a great thing. You have to go through the pain. It sucks. You don't want to feel it. You don't want to go through it, but you do have to, at some point. I think it's important to honor it, and sit with it. And that's just how I've always thought of it. And I also say something about like, heartache is just a rewrite of your heart story. And, I think it's just about reframing the way we talk about these things. There's a lot of potential there that for us as humans. So yeah, every relationship leads you closer to, I think, where you need to the kind of person you need to be, the kind of person you need to find, and follow, just keep going on the journey. That's until there's no more journey, until you found the person who you want to commit to be imperfect with.
Oh, I love a commitment to being imperfect.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, can I ask you if you could talk about the title a little bit, and then I'll let you go, because I feel like I feel like the privilege to be heartbroken was a really lovely ending point. But I also really want to talk about, again, to not to overuse the word bittersweet, but there is something bittersweet, and the title really says so much, I think, about this sort of hope that humans have, but it's also sad, because there's something about it that's like there's like a delusion to it. I don't know the right word.
You have to be delusional to be in love. Don't kind of.
I mean, I think so.
You have to be a little wild and crazy. Like it doesn't make sense. And that's what's amazing about it. That's why humans since forever have been making art about this topic of love. It's like no other topic. It's just,
I think for me, and I'm curious if you feel this way, that like love is my favorite drug. Like I'm fortunate that I haven't developed addictions to alcohol or other substances. But for me, the feeling of euphoria in the beginning of the book is just so enticing.
Yeah.
And I feel like too, I was able to go there with you. In some ways, it was like a weird fantasy of getting
Yeah.
to live out this romance through your experience, which I thought was really like pleasurable in a lot
Yeah.
of ways.
I appreciate that. I'm glad it was.
Oh no.
That means a lot coming from you though. Like, yeah, thank you. I'm glad I
You're
was able to kind
tempted
of,
to live in France. No, hearing you talk, I feel like maybe a lot of people, I mean, your work really invites a sort of, um, again, a connection, a way of processing, also going through similar longings and dealing with
yeah.
also.
Yeah. And I hope it invites you to also be corny. Love is corny in a lot of ways. That whole, like, the whole thing about it, none of it makes sense. And there's this um uh being kind of cheesy in love is really beautiful and poetic to me.
Do you think,
And
this would be my last question, do you think
yeah.
we would be able to talk about this in the same way? How would it change if you weren't in love now? I bet a lot of people ask you that.
I don't know. I think that regardless of the fact that I'm in a relationship now, and in love, I think that this book, the way I came out of the story in the book, um, I was in a really good place because of it all, because I finally showed up for myself, and that's what the book is really about. Um, and I hope it gives maybe license for other people to want to do the same. Um, of course, yeah, in some ways, being in a committed, loving relationship now is yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't know if it would change my perspective about how I would talk about the book. I don't know. You've stumped me. I have to think about
Oh,
that a little more.
maybe it was an inappropriate bad question.
No, it's not inappropriate at all. I think it's a really valid and
I've been on
important
this,
question, actually,
I think I've been on this kick of this anti-silver lining kick.
Mm.
Like, what is the point of hard things? Because sometimes they just like suck.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and for me, the point of them is to like make art.
Mm.
Because I do think some of the best, like most connective, creative, beautiful projects and and art come out of really difficult times. I can't say that
Yeah,
I'm like a better person for going through them. And I can't say that I'm like that I wished, for me personally, that there are lots of things I wish I could go back in time and change. Um,
you
I'm
don't
not,
think you're a more evolved person because of them? Like, you have different kinds of perspective now, and you've grown, and maybe it's helped how you decide things going forward because of the maybe bad experiences.
not necessarily. Some
Mm.
of them, I think it all started, for me, I think I would have felt that way, prior to, my daughter being diagnosed with cystic fibrosis.
Oh
And I
no.
think, oh no, I mean, I love her and it's
Yeah,
beautiful. She's who she is, and
yeah,
I didn't know. But I think afterwards, I'm not necessarily a better person. I'm just more tired.
yeah, yeah.
And
Fair.
but I do think I mean it depends on the day, because some days I feel like it's this giant opening up of a heart that
Mm,
um
mm.
that sort of exists now outside of my body. You said I could be cheesy. So go but I don't always know. It also depends on like what I'm feeling will be supportive, or like how I want to be supported in the moment. And sometimes like I can't find a silver lining, and so I just want to like let it just suck.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Also
That's great.
embrace the sort of randomness of everything. Anyway,
Mhm.
my thank you for asking me about it, because
Yeah.
I love how different people kind of take that question and
Mm.
think about the sort of evolution of their lives and appreciate all the difficult shit that they've been through to get here. Um, but no, I really love your work. I'm a super fan. Several people at
Likewise.
I feel like will be jealous that I got to talk to you. Maybe not jealous, but people were excited you were coming
No,
back.
I'm so honored you to have me on. Obviously, you know everything about this in so many ways, because your work is I don't know, it's just it's all of it and even more. So it means a lot to kind of have this conversation with you.
I have like 8 million more questions too. I'll have to have you back. But anyway, I'm going to put a link to the book. I always think it's forever. I'm sorry that I don't have the hardcover version.
Yeah,
I hear it.
I'm glad you got it very early, so that's cool.
Yeah, no, I've had it for a while and I've been really enjoying it. And yeah, I think everybody else will too. And
I hope so. Yeah.
congratulations
Thank
on the
you. It's
book,
wild. Yeah.
and feeling happy and all the other amazing collaborations that you have going on right now.
Thank you so much.
Totally an example of like what you have to do to like live a creative life, and also it feels like not like hustle, but like, I don't know, get things done, put yourself out there and
Yeah.
be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think we have a lot of the same values in terms of, also, I wanted to say how cool it is, and then I'm really going to end, that you also offer periodically free therapy to people on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. Community is important for me, and, using my privilege where I can about certain things and doing, it's just, and obviously mental health and therapy is very important for me. And it's a super privilege to do that. So I always want to try to give back as much as I can. It's same with, here in New York, my love of New York, and trying to do workshops with kids and students in Brooklyn, or donating murals to schools. I think, if we're not doing this for culture and community, then at the end of the day, what is it really about? So I want to continue to try to be a vessel at times, as much as I can, and to be of service. That's my word of 2023.
To be of service.
Service, yeah.
I also like that there's like, we didn't talk at all about humility. And I think that that's ever present in your work. And I think it's a rare bird these days. Very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Best of luck with the book tour, and take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.